Alrighty, hey guys, thank you for joining us. We got people rolling in. Thanks for joining the How to Grow Your Social Media Following online webinar. Today we got two very talented designers who's going to be giving us some tips and tricks and sharing their stories on how they grew their social media following and how they used it to share their work. I do want to take a quick second to let you know about the chat feature. If you didn't notice, we have a chat and Q&A feature in this forum. So if you have any questions or you want to just introduce yourself, feel free to do that in the chat feature. Leave your name and maybe your Instagram or social media handles, and we would love to get to know you.
Yep. Just to introduce ourselves, I'm Megan Carey, and I'm president of AIGA Mobile. And
I'm Heath Vester, the promotions director of AIGA Mobile.
And we're going to introduce our guests. So we have Casey Ligon. She's a lettering artist, a photographer, food stylist, and chalk muralist who has worked with big brands like Chang, Snickers, Publix, Shoe Carnival, Luna Bars, Magnum, and Panera. She freelances full-time and has been featured on Good Type and has a following of over 34,000 people. And she's pretty local. She's from Niceville, Florida. And we also have Nick Brito, who is an illustrator and designer for Siege Media in Austin, Texas. After graduating from the University of South Alabama in 2016, he started using Instagram as a platform to share his illustration side projects. Since then, he's been able to grow his audience from 200 followers to over 25,000. So welcome, guys. We are so glad to have you.
Yes, thanks
So
for
glad to be
time
here.
to talk to us.
And welcome to everybody in the chat panel. I see you guys all saying hello. So we're excited to have you all here.
Yes, so let's go ahead and get started. Casey, we'll start with you with the first question. Have you always used social media to promote your work?
No. When I first got out of college, I was lucky enough to be at a school where the recruiters would come to us every week. And so I was just submitting my portfolio every single week, trying to get those interviews in. And after I was in a job for about 2 years at Hallmark, I felt like I needed a change. And I was like, I don't have a relevant portfolio. And so I started posting to Instagram every day because I thought if I post every day, I'll have a portfolio in 2 months. I'll have 60 images that I can throw into a binder and call a portfolio. So I actually used it as an outlet for creating a portfolio initially.
Very cool.
What about you, Nick?
Yeah, same. So I originally didn't start off using social media. It actually took one of my college buddies to convince me to even use Instagram because I used to think it was weird. So it wasn't until junior year of college that I started using Instagram, and then after I graduated that I actually started using it for its purpose,
Was it an immediate success? Did you have some failures along your journey?
Definitely not an immediate success. I feel like that rarely happens. If you want to build up an Instagram audience, it's definitely something that just takes patience and time and a lot of work,
Yeah, mine came in big steps where it was like every time I would collaborate with somebody who was also an up-and-coming designer or lettering artist, we were all kind of at the same stage. Every time I would collab and they would post my work, I would post theirs. It was like this little chunk of followers would come along with it. So it came in these waves.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting, Casey. How did you kind of facilitate those collaborations?
I reached out. My biggest collaboration that I think led to my biggest increase was with Danger Dust, the duo that would do those chalkboards at that college. And I reached out to them because I saw them posted online and I was like, they're getting famous, but they're not famous yet. Maybe they'll stoop to my level and work with me on a collab. So I reached out and I was like, hey, could I provide the lettering and you guys just do the chalk artwork? And so with them, I just provided the sketch and then they did the final. So that was the biggest explosion.
Awesome.
Very cool. So do you guys both have a personal page and then a business page, or do y'all just have one account? And depending on which way you do it, what made you decide to do it that way?
You want to start, Casey?
Sure. Mine actually used to be my personal account. And it was all, if you scroll far enough, you'll see pictures of my dog and my meals. And that's just what it was. And so when I started the whole portfolio process, I was like, okay, I will only post lettering. I'll only allow myself to hit that post button if it involves lettering. Even if my dog's head is in the background, as long as it's paper, 10. That's great. And so once it transitioned to a business account and it actually became a business account, I had to start a separate account because I have kids now. And so my personal account is this whole other page that is totally private and all pictures of babies. So you don't want to follow it anyway.
And mine is the case where it's just both my personal and business account, if you call it that. It was like, it used to be just a personal, same store where I just had pictures of my cats and the occasional selfie. But then once I decided to start like illustrating daily, that's when I went ahead and made it like just an account for that. So if you scroll down far enough, you'll find the pictures of myself, but I just decided, all right, I'm just going to go ahead and run with the illustration stuff. So that's like all I have on my page.
Yeah.
Very cool.
It's kind of hard to like think about how to get started with all this. And were you kind of influenced by anybody on Instagram to how to build your social media presence?
For sure.
Yeah.
In my case, whenever I was starting out, because I wasn't an illustrator whenever I started using social media, it's just what I wanted to be. So whenever I was starting to use it as an inspirational source, I would follow people like Nick Slater, Adam Grayson, a bunch of other illustrators who are doing what I want to do. I started just following pretty much those accounts exclusively and seeing, you know, how much they put out on a constant basis. And that kind of inspired me to like, all right, if I want to grow this account, it's going to take a lot of work and a lot of daily, like consistent posting.
Mm-hmm.
So following those types of people that are doing the work you want to be doing, like whenever I was starting out with illustration, like I definitely was using like Nick Slater style, Adam Grayson, Mike Casebolt, and a bunch of people that were doing the kind of work that I wanted to be doing. So if you scroll back far enough, like there is a lot of very different work on my page.
Very cool. What about you, Casey?
I think that's the common path, and I think that that's really helpful to follow those people that, okay, this is the style I want to do, this is the level of effort that I want to do. I had this issue when I first got started because I was initially doing a lot of chalk where people would say, hey, that looks like Dana Tanamachi. And I was like, okay, how can I put the blinders on and make sure that I'm not accidentally soaking that in and creating work that really looks like Dana Tanamachi? And so I specifically wiped all of my following out of designers and letterers and people that I didn't want to start looking like. I took all those off, and then I started following floral artists and illustrators because I wasn't really doing much illustration. I was doing lettering. And I followed tattoo artists because they just had cool illustrations that could inspire my lettering. So now I definitely follow a lot of lettering artists and a lot of people that I aspire to kind of still be in that same realm with. But when I first started out, I was just so paranoid about like being the next Dana Tanamachi, where it's like, no, like, please don't let my work accidentally copy hers, for goodness sake.
Casey, did it take a long time to kind of grow this following? Was it, happen in a matter of weeks? Did something go viral, or, did it take like a process of 12 months or a year? Yeah,
the Danger Dust collab, because they got featured on so many blogs, it wasn't the Dr. Seuss inspired piece that I did with them that got them on those blogs. It was just their work in general started getting featured right after our collab. And so I went from like 600 to 6,000 in the span of a week. And so that one was huge. And then because I had a number over like 5,000, I started seeing a consistent following. I think once people look at your page and they see, oh, she's got a good following, not only do I see good work, she must have good work because so many other people follow her. It's almost like it becomes exponential at that point where you get a kind of, you get respect just because of that number. And it's not true. Like I hate my own word, like nothing is good enough. So like that number just, it doesn't make sense. It's just one of those psychological things.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Casey, could you talk a little more about like a time when like social media or a post in particular has landed you a client or a job that you've always wanted?
I would say like Kind Bars that was like some of the funnest work I got to do. I actually had a conversation about this recently with somebody, and they were talking about LinkedIn, and I kind of consider that its own separate social media because you're sitting there posting and sharing about not only who you are in your resume, but you could be posting consistently on there as well. And LinkedIn got me my first job at an ad agency, and not because my resume was all fluffy and pretty. I happened to slide in the word Microsoft on a description of a student project that I'd worked on. And the recruiter at Barkley was like, oh, you've worked with Microsoft, you've worked with innovators. And it led to this conversation that led to me doing tactile lettering for Blue Bunny. So it's like a student project that had to do with Microsoft led to me doing food lettering for Blue Bunny.
Wow.
So like, I'm such a proponent of having your social media channels fleshed out and realizing that you can cross post on those so that your effort is really one track and you're just reposting that same content from Instagram to Facebook to Twitter to LinkedIn and doing a little bit of work for a really, really wide spread, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That just goes to show you that like you never know what is going to take off, you know, or what's going to get you to where you want to be.
Casey, do you think you could maybe show an example of like your kind bars or anything like that you've worked with, just to kind of give everybody an idea of what we're
Okay, can you guys see my screen okay?
we can.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Oh, where did I go? Content creation. Oh, it's hard to like navigate around this screen. This is going to take a hot second to load because it's all videos. I hope any of this comes through.
Oh, it's all loading. We can see it. Yeah.
Great. So this middle row here, the stuff on the left, that's Publix lettering. In the middle is Noodles and Company. On the right is Luna Bars. It's all of the ones that you see on screen now were shot either in my kitchen or the equivalent of. Like I'm literally in my kitchen right now because I just set up lighting and you have a decent camera and it can look like it's shot at an actual studio. But yeah, let me try. I wonder if I can see any of the food types. That might be some of the kind bar stuff. Just there's so much, like I could just scroll through my website for hours. There's some for season 32 that were really fun. Yeah, it's a lot of just that food on the background that expresses the fact that their food is made with organic ingredients or really natural foods or whatever. So
awesome. Yeah. Thank you for sharing your screen. So Nick, I think that you also had an example of kind of landing a job as well, didn't you?
Yeah. But also throwing it back to the question about the social media like audience and how long that took to grow. Whenever I started mine out in like July of 2016, like I had like 200 followers, and that's when I started like my first side project. And from that point till July 2018, I went from 200 to like 1,400 followers, right? Like it's a slow growth. Like that was 2 years. But what really changed things was once I started sharing my process videos with my illustrations. And I think that people really like to see what goes behind the work because that also kind of gives them some inspiration. Like it's not just this finished product. You get to see everything that went behind it. So once I started sharing those process videos, in May of 2018, I had my 1,400 followers. And then by the end of the year, it went from 1,400 to 20,000. Like, and that was just from that consistent posting with, all right, I'm going to post daily and then also share that process video. And that's when it started to have that like exponential growth. So I think that sharing some type of process also helps in garnering more of an audience.
Yeah.
But then throwing back to your question now is like, so with getting a job from it, it was actually whenever I was applying to the job I have now in Austin, Texas, I submitted my portfolio and they liked my work. But what really stood out to them was all the stuff that I was doing outside of that portfolio, all of the work that I was completing on my own personal side projects. So that kind of helped me stand out. And it's also been able to like land me a client from New York, Frame.io, which Abby Basila, she works there. It was able to land me a really cool project with them. And then also just like these passive things, like now I'm able to be an affiliate with Retro Supply and Skillshare, just by like letting them know, like, because a lot of the times whenever I would share my work, I would let people know what brushes I used, you know, because a lot of people want to know that kind of thing, like how do you do that texture. So I would share that information with them, and that was able to get me like affiliate links and codes. So now whenever it's like something for Retro Supply, I can get some kickback if they use like my link or code. So it's those kinds of things that just kind of like, thanks to social media, I was able to have those opportunities. And as where if I didn't, I don't know if that would happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You want to show us a little bit of your illustration style that you're sharing on Instagram?
Yeah. I'm going to throw it way back to when I first started because I think that's important.
That's great.
So when I first started sharing on Instagram, like, once again, I was trying a bunch of different styles, and this is like 700 posts down, you know, like I was just trying a bunch of different things, but at the same time, it's that daily content that's important. So for my first one, I called it the Good Day Project, where I would illustrate a good part of my day for every day from like the middle of July to the end of the year. So it was like 178 illustrations or so. So I started doing that, and that kind of like got the bug going, that I was like, all right, I really do like this illustration thing. I'm going to keep it going. So then I did like a fitness project where I illustrated like the body group I worked out. And then a video game one, because I've always been into video games. And then the most recent one I started in 2018, I called Sprints, where it'd be 100 days, 100 illustrations with 2 or 3 week break in between those sprints. So total it was 300 illustrations for a year, and that's when I saw the most explosive growth. And it was whenever I started these nature scenes here that someone that's been a mentor to me and really inspired me, Scotty Russell, he commented on one of them like, "You're onto something here. Like you should keep fleshing this out." And I was like, all right, I'll roll with that. So I just started pumping out a bunch of these types of scenes, and that's when I really started to get that exponential growth, and people started like really following me. And then we go towards the top, and it's just a bunch of Procreate work now, because I'm really starting to get into Procreate.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been a long experimentation, essentially, to eventually find my own style.
Awesome. Yeah.
Very cool. So like I imagine like having so much work and posting so much content can be a little overwhelming at times, or a little exhaustive. And so how do you manage all the content? How do you do you stick to a calendar? Do you stick to a schedule? How do you plan your posts?
I'm kind of on a mental break hiatus personally, where like I post if I can, if I'm doing a workshop, like if I'm holding the workshop, or if I went to like AIGA Mobile's workshop, I post because the content is sitting right in front of me. It's easy. But when I'm actually in the grind of posting daily or weekly or whatever, I use later.com as a management tool. And that way I don't normally have Instagram on my phone. I find it too distracting and addictive. So I tend to use later.com to post for me. They can post your stories, they can post your content on a schedule, so I can upload 10 shots and then sprinkle them through the month, so that I don't have anxiety about waking up and thinking like, what am I going to post? And I used to use Trello, but that's a bit more about like getting projects done. I do think that it could be helpful though, if you wanted to like structure how you're producing content and getting that online. Yeah, and Google Calendar, obviously, just keeping a mindset of, okay, I've got to be producing. Let me put that little bug in my own ear to say, okay, it's Tuesday. You got to be pumping out this content. So,
yeah. What about you, Nick?
Well, that was really cool to know. I didn't know about later.com, but that sounds pretty great. Mine's more off the fly. It's like right now I'm kind of in the same space where it's like I'm aiming to get like 5 posts a day. I mean, not a day, a week. 5 posts a day will be wild. Not going that crazy over here, but I'll try to get like 5 posts a week. But yeah, it's serious business. But like if I don't hit that 5 in a week, it's okay. But generally, like I just kind of try to stick to like some kind of consistent posting, but I don't use any programs. It'll just kind of be like a day by day thing. Like, all right, I'll go ahead and submit this to Instagram.
Well, when I first started out, I was so inspired. Like I wanted to do lettering, and I got bored with ink and watercolor. I was like, how can I find a new material? And that turned into food. Like I literally lettered the avocado chunks on my toast. So when I first started out, I was pumping out so much content because I was just so excited and so inspired that I was like, I could post twice a day, because I was just like producing. But then if you get into that, I don't know, if you just stop producing as much content, you have to structure it and you have to stick it into something that posts for you, because it's just, man, you go through waves of like being inspired and wanting to post every day, and then like, okay, I gotta slow it down. I can't do this. I've got kids and a husband and all that.
So we've mainly talked about Instagram. Do you think that's the platform designers and artists should focus on, or are you on Facebook and Twitter?
And Casey, you talked a little bit about LinkedIn. Like that's a kind of a platform that we don't hear a lot about.
Yeah.
So like if you could talk a little more about that even.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, LinkedIn is one of those that you should have it, period. I went to a school that was very career focused, and they wanted you to get a job no matter what. They had like a 96% efficiency rate in terms of employment after college because they were focused. And so like you have to have a LinkedIn, like have it filled out. Go to a coffee shop for 2 hours and fill it out as thoroughly as possible with as much description and detail as possible, and connect with as many people as you can so you don't look like a total hermit. And then don't worry about it. Like if your email is connected to that, great. You might get some kind of contact there. Focus, your production and your work on one primary channel. If you find yourself loving Instagram and reaching out to people on Instagram, maybe that's the platform for you. Or if you really love Dribbble or Behance, if you're like really into catering those projects and project descriptions on Behance, that one's really, really good. But focus your efforts on maybe one and try to keep those plates spinning elsewhere just by forwarding that content or taking your Behance content and cropping it and sticking it on Instagram. Take the one platform that you really, really love and spread that same work elsewhere instead of giving yourself so much work to do.
Mm-hmm. Nick, do you have any?
Yeah, so I actually only use Instagram and Dribbble. But as far as like real inquiries that I've gotten, like 90% of the actual bona fide ones are from Dribbble. I feel like a lot of them are like the ones that I get from Instagram are more so people just wanting quick work or free work. So using Dribbble has kind of been a good way to like filter out some of the more not useful inquiries. So I think Dribbble is important if you're a designer. Also Behance, like I don't use it, but Behance posts are an art form. Like the people that use Behance, like their posts are on a whole other level. So I think that's great to utilize if that's like one of your skill sets. But I only use Instagram and Dribbble actually.
Interesting.
What about hashtags? How important do you think that is for Instagram and Twitter?
I think you should go for it. Like Instagram has a cap of 30.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
You have to like put it in comments, like multiple comments. I use Later. They let you set up your hashtags there. And if you want to paste the same hashtag cloud again and again, they will let you save those hashtags so you can post them each time. I don't know. When I think about hashtags, like a little piece of my soul has like shriveled up and died just in the that it takes to try to keep up with hashtags and to keep up with the strategy behind Instagram. I think it's just so much more about being genuine and posting content that you want to make and that you love to make, because the interactivity is there. And if you're commenting on other people's pages and if you're posting such that your work is populating the Explore feed, people are going to find you and you're going to engage with them. And as far as Instagram is concerned, I think it's so much more about being genuine. The hashtag game, it's such a, I don't know, it hurts to think about sometimes.
Yeah.
Well, I'm on the opposite end of the spectrum. I'm totally about the hashtag cloud. And it's like, so one thing that I've heard actually is if you post your hashtags in the comments, that actually it's not as conducive. It's better to post your hashtags with your like post. And as well as like, I'm on Instagram to share my work. So it's like, why not get it on as many eyes as possible? And honestly, the Instagram algorithm, like it's so out of nowhere. Like sometimes my posts, if I use hashtags, it doesn't matter at all because the hashtags aren't even used. So it gets to like no one. And other times it's like through the roof, it goes to everybody and it's great. But I think hashtags can be useful for getting your work out there. Don't go above 30 because then they shadow ban you. So your hashtags will go to no one. But I think it's a good way to get yourself out there, especially when you're starting, you know?
Yeah.
But also like one thing that I used to do is like used really industry specific hashtags. So like if I was making something that was computer related, I would use a bunch of computer related hashtags, which didn't really work because people in the computer industry don't care at all about art in their industry really. So once I started using like more artistic related hashtags, that started like increasing engagement and getting it to more people in that area.
That's a really good tip.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah, and I tend to add hashtags for those lettering accounts like Good Type and Lettering Daily and all those ones that say, if you tag us, we'll post your work. So a lot of those hashtags, I still think those are really, really great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you both post a lot of things and you both have a lot of content. Like, I guess, Casey, how do you measure success of a post or measuring success of a post, I guess?
If people are engaging, if people are commenting, I'm happy, but it's such a mixed bag now. Like my engagement has tanked since all of the algorithm changes, but I'm still seeing those occasional posts that really stand out and they're getting a lot more comments. And so I think for me, it's more about the comments than it is the likes, because something could explode with likes, but not have a single comment. And then I just feel like I learn a bit more if something has comments that I can engage with.
Very cool. What about you, Nick?
So, yeah, I feel similarly. I feel like trying to measure your success on a social media post, it's a slippery slope, because I don't feel like you should attribute your worth to that post by likes or comments. You know, if you're proud of what you like, because a lot of the illustrations I've made that have been like my favorite haven't really gotten that great of reception or feedback from people, you know? So it's a tricky kind of subject. I think that if people are vibing with your work, that's great. But I feel like the success you find in your social media post should be personal. It shouldn't be based off the feedback you get from other people or the like amount, you know? Because that can make social media more toxic, honestly.
For sure.
Kind of going back to the algorithm question, a lot of people ask me, like, do you use the business feature on Instagram, or have you switched to that so you can see the insights? Or are you keeping it personal? Because a lot of people think that the algorithm kind of takes over when you switch to the business page and people don't see you as much. Do either of you have an opinion on that?
I mean, I've played around with it, but I haven't noticed any differences. So I'm really curious about like what it all actually does for you. I used to be a business page, and now I think I'm a creator. They expanded to have multiple options for you to be something other than a personal page that allowed you to see those analytics. And so now I have it turned back to creator status, but I don't tend to look at the analytics. I think the option is there though.
Yeah, I've heard a mixed bag that like being a personal account will get you more engagement versus being a business. Because it's like sometimes they'll say if you're a business account, like your hashtag, it'll be like blocked or whatever. So I've heard mixed things. I've just kept it on business and left it there. I didn't know about that creator option. That's actually really cool to know. But yeah, I just left mine on business.
Yeah.
Interesting. So Casey, how much time do you spend on social media? Like, I know you've talked a little bit about the tools that you use to help you manage that, but how do you balance like creating content and posting that content with your personal life or your, work life?
Well, like I said, I'm kind of on a hiatus right now where I don't want it to matter, because I got a little bogged down by the numbers and I was getting frustrated that my posts aren't getting as many likes as they used to be years ago. So because I'm lucky enough to have networking be more of an influence on the jobs that I get than Instagram, which Instagram used to be where I would get more of my work. Now it's more about who has known me from previous jobs or worked with me on previous jobs, and they're coming for repeat jobs. So I'm on the next, I think, even through the month of August, I'm going to keep this hiatus going until it starts to feel like I'm creating work because I want to create work, and I'm posting because I have an abundance of content sitting in front of me. So I think it just ebbs and flows.
Yeah.
And we see a few questions coming in, guys. We will answer those at the end, so don't think that we're ignoring you as well. So let's see. Do you guys think that you have to have a social media presence to get ahead in this business? Or can you just not be on social media at all?
Do you want to start, Casey?
I think that if you are going to be an artist and if you're going to be creating content, you have the tools at your disposal. You probably have a smartphone, and you can, for free, download Instagram or Dribble or something, somewhere to post your content. So if you are inspired and if you are generating content, I am all for posting it, because I think it just takes that extra minute. So I wouldn't say that it should ever be the opposite way around. You shouldn't choose a platform and then think, well, now I've got to flood it with content so I can get a job. My job in food type and chalk art came out of me being frustrated at work and posting on the side. And I think that so many of those great success stories of people who are making a living off of their art come from having a job, being frustrated, and creating fun things on the side, and then the fun things become your job. So I say do the fun things and then just stick them online for free. Like, it just takes a second.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think?
Yeah, I'm agreeing with Casey. It's like, I don't think that having a social media is essential, but I think that it does help you out more than anything else. You know, it's like you have nothing to lose when you do post. And whenever you're using it for personal use, like she was saying, like, if you're just posting the stuff that you really enjoy, like that, you're going to end up getting hired in that area, and they've seen that work that you really enjoy, so they know you're fit. But also in the same vein, like there are some designers I know that can run circles around me that have zero social media presence, and it's like, they're fine. You know, I think it just depends on what you want to do. I don't think it's essential to have social media, but I think that it can help edge you out in the hiring process, and also just showing potential clients what it is that you really vibe with, you know?
Yeah. Absolutely. So, kind of throwing it back to Casey, do you have any social media pet peeves?
There's a lot of frustrations that come with posting your work online when people repost it, or I've had a lot of people that quite literally will check my content, and I'm like, you tagged me in the hashtag cloud. You very clearly traced my work and you captioned it practicing, and I'm like, that's not practicing. Like, yeah, there's a lot of frustration for putting yourself out there, because as soon as you put yourself out there, you're opening yourself up to be copied. So I when I first started getting a following and I started noticing copycats, I would like block people, and like I totally had to stop doing that, because now I'm just like, I want to reach back in the past and be like, Casey, what were you thinking? Like, of course, there's going to be those people that either do copy you, or it just looks like it, but they really had no intention of copying you, and they got their resources and references from somewhere completely out of left field, so it wasn't a copy. So like, man, I just know that the copies are going to happen, and if you are genuine and if you are creating this content and putting yourself out there, you're going to get the jobs and you're going to get the connections that you deserve, and just kind of filter out all the, put blinders on for the rest of the world.
Yeah. What about you, Nick?
I have a couple of my own pet peeves. One is spam comments. I can't stand when you get that spam comment that doesn't even acknowledge your work. It's just saying, check out my page. It's frustrating. I'll instantly block them. I mean, I'm familiar with the block button. I don't know. I don't like whenever people are, you know, they're just trying to spread their own page. That can be frustrating. But also accounts that they're not even copying your work. They're just straight up stealing it and posting it as their own. It's really frustrating when you see someone using your work and trying to pull it off as their own. But Instagram actually has a really nice feature where you can fill out a copyright strike form, and all you have to do is like submit the link to my own image that they posted, and then they'll go ahead and take it down for you. And that's a really useful feature for me, because it's like, I don't know, if you're influenced by my work and inspired, that's awesome. Like, I really appreciate that. But if you're just straight up stealing my work and posting it as if you did it yourself, that frustrates me.
Yeah, I think spam is like a huge problem. I mean, especially when you get started, because you'll be really excited because somebody like commented or liked the page, and then you go and look and it's just totally a spam bot, you know?
Right. And I think some of that is associated with the hashtags.
Yeah.
Because that's what a lot of the bot accounts do, is like, all right, you use this hashtag, we have that bot to go ahead and use that, and we're going to post that comment. And it's just like, that is one reason why I don't like hashtags, because the bot accounts just love them.
So now that you've been doing this a while, Nick, what would you do differently if you were just starting out now?
I think that posting like at a consistent time is important, because a lot of people, they'll ask like, what's the magical time to get like the most engagement? Like, when do I gotta post? It's like, ooh, 5 p.m. That's when everyone's getting off work or whatever. And it's like, that time doesn't exist. There is no like magical time where people are gonna all of a sudden engage way more with your post. So I think, but you can make that time yourself. So like one thing that I did whenever I was doing my sprints and doing the 300 illustrations was, every time I posted at 9 p.m. So people know what to expect. Like, all right, my post is going to be coming at that time. So you make your own magical time where you're going to get that engagement because people are expecting it. So that's one thing that I would have used starting out that I think is really helpful, is to just go ahead and, if you're going to be posting consistently, make it consistent in every way possible so people know what to expect from your page.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
What about you, Casey?
I was trying to think back on like my progression through Instagram and like what I had done over the years to get where I'm at. And I don't know about, aside from like not blocking people, and now I feel like I have this like, oh God, what if I like meet somebody like at an AIGA thing and they're like, you blocked me, and I'm like, oh God, 5 years ago you had a drawing that looked like a drawing and it was bad. So like, besides that, like I actually see this current hiatus as a chance to reboot what I had already done, where like I want to take a break, and then like when I get back started again, I want to post the content that I want to make. I want to just generate imagery based on like what I'm doing in the day and stick that on Instagram. So yeah, I think that natural progression is just so key.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. So like we all know that like the world of design is kind of finicky and changes a lot. So
Yeah.
like how do y'all stay like current with the shifts and changes in the design world and then also in social media?
So I think one thing that's cool about like using my social media as a source of inspiration is I'm following a lot of, first of all, small people, then also like big names in the industry. And sometimes you can see those trends before they take place. Like, for example, like one thing I saw a while back was like Steve Wolf, he posted like this pattern exploration and it looked great. And all of a sudden, like a month or two later, you see pattern explorations everywhere. Like they are so in right now. So it's like, I think that if you use your social media as like a source of inspiration, of people that are not only leading the industry, but people that inspire you, like you'll kind of be up to those trends without even having to like actively follow them. Because sometimes the work they post, that'll be the trend before they even know it happens.
Yeah. What about you, Casey?
I just think it's important not to get too married to any one particular platform or any one source of income, because for something as simple as Instagram changing its algorithm like that, that just changed so many people's lives. And so somebody like me who's not getting that engagement on Instagram anymore, and my emails that I receive aren't starting out with, hey, I follow you on Instagram and we want to use you for a job. The Instagram isn't the heaviest flow of work for me. And so just knowing that I may switch to Dribble one day, or I may switch to another platform that's coming up. So it all just realize that like nothing is forever if you're working with social media. Like it's going to change on you, and everybody's going to be using Snapchat, and you're just going to feel lost.
Yeah. So like Nick, I know that you've posted like some progress shots before, and I know that that's kind of a big thing, is like showing your progress with work and stuff like that. Do you think that is important to show on social media? And if so, why?
I think that it depends on what you're trying to achieve. Personally, like I want people to know the work that went into my piece, because I think that it's valuable for them, because they also see like, a lot of the stuff that you see on Instagram, Dribble, or just people that are posting, like they post that finished product. So I think that the more information you can give them, like, all right, this isn't just the finished piece. This is everything that went into it. This is the thumbnail sketch. This is the sketch. Like it's all a part of the process. And I think that it's not essential, but I think that it is like helpful for your audience, to know everything about your piece.
Yeah. Casey, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I used to take a lot of time-lapse videos. I still do. I take a lot of time-lapse videos of my work. And so posting that as a separate post or as a combination post gets a lot of engagement because people realize like, oh, this chalk art didn't just make itself. Like it took 4 hours to craft this, like in my PJs. So like it makes you more relatable. It makes people realize the effort that goes into it. And a kind of neat tip for Instagram specifically is that they started populating your feed with the first image posted. And then maybe if you go on Instagram an hour later, you're going to be scrolling and you're going to see that same post repopulated, but now it has swiped to the second image for you. So that's a really nice way to get more views. And they might not like it once they see it the first time. Like maybe they're not in a liking mood, but then as they're going through the second time, they're like, that's right, here's the video for that content. I like this. And you're going to get a little bit better engagement if you have multiple shots chosen for a post.
I kind of feel like with Instagram, the shift to stories, stories have kind of taken over Instagram. How do you think it's really important to put like new posts in your stories and direct them to the post that you just made to actually get them to see that? Because I feel like a lot of people just click on stories, watch that, and don't actually scroll through as much anymore.
I'm in like a constant state of paranoia that I'm annoying people. So like, like I want to post every day. I want to post every minute. But if I'm going to stick it in the stories, are you going to be annoyed? And then profile just so you can unfollow has annoyed you so much. So like I get frustrated by that. But I do think if you can find like a quirky way that you want to share it, like some people will post a GIF and then hide the post under that GIF. So you have to tap on the GIF to get to the post. Like there's fun ways to share it that don't feel so invasive. Like if you are posting every day, new post, people are they might get tired of that. I use stories more like if I'm traveling and sharing where I am and like the cool sites and cool sketches or whatever, or throwing in like personal content that kind of makes me more relatable and more understandable because I don't want to flood my feed with photos of my face or of babies. So yeah, I think stories can be a mixed bag, but I think sharing only, hey, new post, hey, new post, hey, new post starts to sound like somebody popping their head in and saying, hey, new post. So I would maybe avoid that unless you can turn it on its head and make it a little bit more innovative.
Man, yeah, I'm the exact same way. Like it's good to hear that. It's like, I do see people doing that and I understand the use of it, but I just feeling like I'm going to be annoying. So a lot of times when I'm using my stories, it'll just be like videos of dogs because I love dogs, you know? So that's what I'm going to be some stories for.
So what are you guys most proud of achieving through these accounts?
Oof, that's a tough one. I think honestly, one of the things I'm most proud of was in college and starting out, I was a huge fan of Retro Supply. I always have been. And whenever they reached out to me to be an affiliate, that meant a lot. But then also like there was an opportunity where I got to create like demo art for them. And that to me was just like super special because they were a resource to me for so long that meant a lot to me. And like they've helped me along through so much. So that's something that really like stood out to me whenever that happened.
Yeah. What about you, Casey?
Sorry, I got a 7-year-old with a nosebleed. I'm going to be right back.
Sorry. You're
No.
fine. Let's see. So Nick, do you have like one piece of advice you'd give a young designer or illustrator to help them kind of get started?
Put yourself out there. I don't think you should. A lot of posting social media is like your own mental battle. And I feel like there's just like this kind of voice in your head that's like, don't post this or whatever, because it's not perfect. I think that just posting your work out there is really important, especially as a young designer, because it's not perfect, but also it's really important that people see that, you know, it's going to be a progression. So the more work you put out there, I think the better when it comes to a young designer.
That's great advice.
Yeah, and it's good, I think, to like be able to look back on your progress and see what you've learned and how you've grown over time and stuff like that. But,
right.
Yeah.
Right. It's like this one thing that I do every year is whenever I was a junior in college or senior, I was taking an illustration class, and one of my assignments was it was a web assignment work, and we had to illustrate a robot. So what I do once a year now on that same date is illustrate that robot. So people can scroll through and see how it looked whenever I was first starting illustration and what just consistent practice can look like whenever you keep doing the same thing. So that's one thing that I it's really fun to see that progress.
Yeah. So Casey, kind of going back to you, if you're there, did you have any answers to the first question about what you're most proud of?
Yeah, I had kind of an anecdote because when I was growing up, my dad was a local photographer in the Destin area, and he did like aerial photography and condo photography, but every once in a while he would do a cool project, and he took a picture of the lion at the local zoo, and he took a bunch of animal shots for them, and the lion photograph ended up being the zoo's logo, the Gulf Breeze Zoo. They used Larry the Lion, and it was his face and the word Gulf Breeze Zoo, and that was on billboards and postcards and everything. And I just thought it was the coolest thing to drive by and see that lion and know that my dad was in the cage with that lion and he took that photograph. And so after he passed away in 2005, I got this tattoo of Larry the Lion on my arm. And I wanted it to be this reminder. This was after I got my first full-time job at Hallmark. I wanted it to be this reminder and this stamp that said, I did it. I got a job in creative arts, and I'm going to make this my full-time career. And just to remember how cool that feeling is to see your work out in the world. And that's really what drove me to work in advertising, because I wanted to see the cool, fun, creative things that I did. I've got a jet flying overhead. I don't know if you guys can hear that. I live next to a military base. I wanted to see the creative work that I did out in the world and appreciated by other people. So just knowing that like I can produce work for companies that are doing good things and that are selling good products. Like I'm not going to work for a tobacco brand, or there's just some lines that I won't cross. But if it comes to, promoting organic foods and things that are good for your body, like I want to partner with those kinds of companies. So taking a bit of this advertising mentality and this ability to show your work out in the world, but also combining it with just kind of feeling good about going home at the end of the day and being able to sleep at night because you've been working for good companies.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And did you have a piece of advice you want to give young designers?
Yeah, I think to just summarize all of what we've been chatting about, it's like if you want to get a job in design or in illustration or in food lettering or any of these different subsets of design, you have to be producing work that you want to produce, because if it is a struggle to put it together and stick it on social media, you're not going to want to do that every single day, 9 to 5. Like it's the stuff that you're doing after you get off work because you're so frustrated by your job. That's the work that you need to just keep producing, keep making. And if you don't have a following, who gives a F? Like just keep producing the stuff that makes you happy and brings you joy and fulfills your life. And you're going to grow that following eventually. It's just so much more about being happy and producing work that you want to produce at the end of the day.
Great advice.
Absolutely. So do you want to get into some questions?
Yeah, I think we're ready to start some questions, and we already have some. And if you have a question, drop it in the chat or in the Q&A box for us. So our first question is from Satin. And she said, do you think that asking for interaction, posting questions to your audience in your posts help? Have you noticed any difference?
I think it can be fun. I think it can sound a bit like advertising. Like, what's your favorite book? Like it can feel a little fake. But I think it can be fun because one time I posted something that had to do with ice cream, and I was like, what are your favorite ice cream flavors? And it was nice to kind of converse with a couple people there, and maybe I'll do a piece involving the answers that they gave in the future. So I think it can be really fun, but I just make it come from make it come organically. Don't force it if it doesn't feel right for your posts. And if you're not getting engagement off of it, it starts to feel like what every brand is doing. Like, hey, we're Post-its or we're Sharpie or whatever company. Here's our content. What's your favorite Post-it? Sometimes.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I've never used the what's your favorite or those kinds of comments on my post. But I think whenever I do see people that use them and it's genuine and something that I actually relate to, then I'm going to actually comment back. So I think that it can be useful as long as you're making sure that it's genuine to you and not, like Casey was saying, not just like an advertisement to try and make some superficial engagement.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the next question is from Audrey McKee. And this one's for you, Nick. With a full-time agency job, how do you maintain the time and energy to post and draw consistently? Do you do thumbnails in advance, or do you sit down and draw the whole piece in one go?
So I think working a full-time agency job, it's really important to have a schedule and making sure you're making the most out of your time. So whenever I'm doing my illustrations, I will use my lunch break and sketch out a thumbnail, and I'll go ahead and get the idea out there. And then I will, after I get home from work, I will go ahead and flesh out that idea. And it's like, it doesn't feel cumbersome to me because once again, like this is the work that I really enjoy. So after I get home and create that piece, like there's that fulfillment from it. But I think making the most out of your day is important if you want to be like working an agency job, but then also having those illustrations on the side that you really enjoy.
For sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's see, guys, keep asking questions. Casey, I wanted to know, like, how long does it take you to set up one of your food designs and then, film that?
It's definitely like a learned multi-day process. I think when I started out, I mentioned the avocado piece. I was about to go back to work after a few days being sick. And so I woke up, I got my breakfast ready, I had the toast on the table, and I was slicing the avocado, and I was like, ugh, I don't want to go to work. And so I made out of avocado, UGH, UGG, on my toast. And I photographed it with my cell phone and I posted it. And it probably has higher engagement than half of the content that I've ever posted. So I just, when you're starting out, like, don't stress about like having the best setup and having all this amazing stuff. Like, get near a outside window and photograph it with your cell phone. Like, you're going to have great light and you're going to have a high quality camera. Good. But nowadays it's a multi-step process where I'm obviously working for larger brands and they have expectations for the quality of the image. And so I've slowly but surely learned what camera to use and what lighting to use and how to do the food styling and the food chopping and dicing and all that. So I tend to buy ingredients and props in one day, and then I will sketch another day, and then I'll have my setup. I'm in my kitchen now. I've got my setup above us here, like my rig and my camera mount. It's always set up. And so all I have to do is pop my camera on the mount, chop the food in the kitchen next to the sink and all that, and I'm good to go. So, and my lighting is like over here, like those are my lights. They're all set up and ready to go. So, or that's my lights. So it's like it's all such a system that I've developed over years. And now it's kind of plug and play.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So like,
Also,
go ahead, Nick.
Harping off what you were saying really quick, Casey, about like the equipment. One of the questions I get so frequently is like, what do you use to do these things? And it's like, that doesn't really matter at all. Like, use what you have consistently, and then like that'll come to you. So it's like, that really vibe with me, because it's like people, they think that having the right tool will all of a sudden make their work exponentially better. But it's like, it's just practice, just keep finding out what you need to make yourself better.
That's my Instagram pet peeve. When people comment, what pen is that? And I'm going to make that into, and I'm going to make it into a sticker and all these other things. What pen is that is not a question you should be answering.
Right.
Like, if you spend all day Googling what the perfect tool is, you've spent a day Googling. When you could have been trying out 18 different tools, or just trying one tool and practicing your drawing skills. Like that's like my favorite new tip nowadays is like, if you spend the day Googling, you're spending the day Googling. You're not actually getting any practice or progress in.
Yeah.
So Casey, we have another question from Satin. She says, from one mom to another, how do you tackle main jobs, personal projects, and all the responsibilities of being a mom while staying organized?
I don't. I'm actually really lucky. My mother-in-law is a teacher at a local school, and so she will drop everything, because that's like advertising moves so quickly. She will drop everything and babysit my children for 4 days in a row. If like I did last week, I went to Kansas City, and I think I told her 3 days beforehand. So like that's this one lovely segment of my life. But the other thing is that I send my one child to school and my other child to daycare, or like days like today where the daycare canceled, I have my 1-year-old sleeping and I just have my monitor on silent, and then my 7-year-old who popped in here with a bloody nose a second ago, that's just what I deal with. I literally shoot in my kitchen, so that if I have to take a shot from Friday and keep shooting on Saturday, Sunday, I can do that in the kitchen. I can throw the baby gate up. I can keep the kids contained. I can keep the work going, and maybe put storybots on for an hour. Like in terms of parenting, you have to kind of take those sacrifices. Like, okay, am I gonna put food on the table? Well, the kids are gonna be in front of storybots for an hour, and I'm gonna give them a whole hour of screen time because I'm just not perfect. So yeah.
So the next question we have is from Emily Deal. And I guess, Nick, we'll start with you on this one. Are you ever afraid to post creative things that are not a part of your brand or your look, such as like paintings or other like creative outlets?
No. And I think that it's really important that people should not feel like your page has to be one thing. You know, it's like, if you want to experiment and try a whole different style, do that. Because that's what I was talking about, like attributing the success of your social media post by metrics. Like, if it's making you happy, try that and post it, because why not? Like, it's what you enjoy. So I think that you should experiment, have fun, post whatever you want to, because at the end of the day, you're not trying to make someone else happy. It's just for yourself, you know?
Yeah. Casey, do you have anything you want to add?
Yeah, a friend of mine started some blog content, and she built up, I think, 1,200 followers on Instagram. And then she made like a huge life change, and she was like, now I want to be a professional organizer, and that's totally different than what I was posting, but I don't want to change the name, so what do I do? Because it was her name. And I was like, you post the content that you want to be posting. You put out the work that you want to get hired for, no matter what. And if you piss off 1,200 people, well, ideally you're going to have a bigger following one day anyway. And you just need to produce that work that makes you happy, because you can't keep continuing down a track that isn't where you want to go.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a question from Audrey saying, what are your favorite designer Instagram accounts that you follow?
I'm gonna have to like open up Instagram for this.
Dude, same. Like, there's so many.
And feel free to like share your screen if you just want to show up some of those people too.
I mentioned this earlier. I follow a lot of floral shops, and I follow a lot of tattoo artists. And so that way my inspiration isn't always just from lettering. I follow a lot of the classic lettering accounts like Good Type and all those, Lauren Hom and Jessica Hish and all those very famous lettering artists. I certainly follow all of those as well.
Yeah, let me see. I'm pulling up some of mine so people can see. But that's also a lot of what I use my social media for, is to follow people that inspire me. So there's a ton of people here. I'll just pull up some of them that I'm really enjoying right now.
I follow a lot of like Disney accounts. Like, I'm hardcore drinking the Disney Kool-Aid, and so I follow like Admiration and all those great illustrators that do work for Disney, or Gabby Zapata. She's another good one that works out in LA at their Disney offices. If I love Disney, I'm going to branch out and try to find the illustrators and the people that are producing content related to Disney, because that's something that brings me joy. So take those joys, those passions that you have, and realize that there are going to be Instagram accounts kind of in those veins. If you want to be a lettering artist, don't just follow lettering artists, like spread out a little bit and realize that can inspire your lettering.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Here, I'll share some of mine. So this guy Sam G, he's a really, really talented illustrator. He's been hugely inspiring. This one girl, she's the best. Her name is Tatiana. And she just does a bunch of different like experimentations. And she's one of like my favorite people on Instagram, because she is all about community. Like, and that's another great thing about social media, is it can be a community depending on how you use it. Like, reach out to those people that are inspiring you, or that you're really enjoying their work, and like just send them a message. And I feel like this is the kind of industry where people are really generous and kind, and a lot of times they'll reply back, you know. And like you're saying, like this kind of like, I can't even fathom doing this kind of illustration, but like this guy is hugely inspiring, because like I love rap music, and it's like the stuff that he gets to create for rappers his name's Sam Spratt, but he's awesome.
Yeah, I love his work.
And then this guy Brian, like a king of textures, super solid. I mean, but there's way too many for me to name right now.
Awesome.
That'd be cool.
All right. So, guys, it is 1 o'clock. So, we hit our target for 1 hour perfectly. So,
Yeah.
We're going to wrap up. But thank you guys so much for doing this. We really learned a lot today, I think. And
Absolutely.
I hope that everybody got a lot out of this. And if the audience liked it, please let us know because we'll try to do more of these. So,
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, it's super fun.
Yeah, find me on Instagram at Casey Ligon and feel free to DM if you have any questions besides what pen is that.
Yeah.
And Nick, do you want to share your handle?
Yeah, Nick.Brito. Feel free to hit me up with any questions or anything.
Perfect.
Yep. Awesome.
Okay,
Yeah.
So
Thanks for joining us.
we are signing off, and thanks you guys, and thanks everyone. Bye.
Bye.